If I say, would you enthusiastically rehire all your employees? And if they're like, no, then I know that we have a major people problem. If you put someone at the top that is not a fit with the culture, all your employees are going to want to quit. It's easier to train someone to be perfect on paper than it is to get someone to fit in with the culture. If you think that you're going to be complete and a part of you is going to be done when you become successful, you've missed out on what life is. Once you're ripe, you're rotten. And if you're green, you're growing. So if you're dreading it, if it exhausts you, if you're getting burnt out, I know that you're not doing things that are fulfilling to you.
Most entrepreneurs think scaling is about systems, tech, or working harder. But what if the real key is hidden in human behavior, the psychology of how leaders think, lead, and grow? I'm Linda Vo, and this is the Inspired by Success podcast. In this episode, we'll dive into why most scaling strategies fail by ignoring human behavior, how to shift from obligation to passion and fulfillment in your business, the critical transition every CEO must make from operator to visionary. Our guest today has helped leaders worldwide turn their challenges into competitive advantages, redesign their relationship with business, and scale without losing their soul. Let's dive in with international leadership and scaling expert, Carly Pepin. Welcome to the show, Carly.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
So you've built a career around helping leaders transform. What parts of your own journey shaped who you are today?
So many. So my family, they're entrepreneurs. So I kind of grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and that was really helpful in wanting to build my own business. My dad had built his own company and he had done quite well with it. My mom, instead of working, she decided to start her own travel agency sort of thing at home so she could kind of stay at home and do that. My uncle was a business owner. My aunt worked in it. My grandma had a restaurant flooded with business owners. So it was really cool. So it's kind of the opportunity when you think about life. It was like, what do you want to do? And I saw so many people. I had the opportunity to see them enjoying their jobs, actually enjoying it as well. So there was definitely a non-negotiable there for me where I really wanted to do what I love and love what I do. So that was really demonstrated. And I started out as a business owner at 18. I tried to do college for a little while and I did not do well. I just wasn't very engaged, but my parents saw that I was really engaged at work. So I'd rather be working, and I was managing a surf shop and they had been training me and doing all this fun stuff. So I'd rather be working than actually at school. So they decided instead of, sending me to college or whatever, because I was like, I don't know what to do. They're like, do you want to start a business? And I was like, okay. So that was the first business I ever had. It totally didn't work out, but boy, it was a great experience. It's kind of been a little bit in different settings where I worked in businesses after that, but they were more entrepreneurial based. So I got to be an entrepreneur inside the company. And then eventually I was like, it's time to start doing this for myself again. And that was about 15 years ago. Yeah. So it's been fun.
So you coach people now?
Yeah. So I started doing it 15 years ago is when I started coaching. I realized I was going into these places and I was helping all these people build their businesses or building out different sectors within a business, which was kind of an interesting thing to attract, but it kept being consistently that. And it got to a point where I thought, why am I not just doing this for myself? And why don't I create a business around this dynamic? I keep building other people's companies. I keep building these little offshoots, these little things, and they're successful. So I was like, why am I not just doing this for myself? And that's when I first started diving into the coaching industry, it's a tough world because it's definitely flooded and there's a lot of competition, which is awesome, by the way, because they keep you on your toes. They make you stay authentic, grounded, educated. So I love my competition. Thank you. You keep me sharp. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of coaches out there, but I think what people are drawn to is more the energy and your uniqueness. And that's what it is about coaches. I think they're just buying not just what you're offering, the courses or the modules, whatever, but more of your energy and what you can deliver for them too. So I want to talk about personal transformation and mindset, because you teach that our flaws can become our greatest business assets. And I definitely believe that as well. So can you share a challenge of your own that turned that into an advantage and why that's the case?
Yeah, I think there's certain things that I know we judge ourselves for all these different things, right? And we're supposed to be a certain way or look a certain way or act a certain way. And a really great example is I'm from the Los Angeles area, born and raised, and I grew up in the Valley. So for those of you who have not heard this song, you can go look up Frank Zappa, Valley Girl, and you're going to listen to it and you're going to be like, what? She is a Valley Girl. So I'm a Valley Girl. We sound a very specific way. We talk a specific way. I use all the time. It's hysterical. Like if you actually listen to the dynamic, it's a culture. And at first, there are certain individuals, when I first started to get out in the business world, I would hear some feedback from them that I sound ditzy and I sound stupid and all these different dynamics. And it was really interesting because I took it really personally because I was also judging myself for those things. And so what I realized is, yeah, in certain areas of life and certain people and certain cultures and certain places, I'm not good for you guys. Like I'm genuinely not. It's not going to happen. But when I connect with individuals who have a similar either background or culture or have kind of the same vibe as I do, they feel so comfortable. They feel comfortable. They feel relaxed. They feel like they can be themselves. And I realized that it wasn't about being professional in the way that I was judging or I thought. It was about just being authentic, being myself, going out there, being who I was, and letting the individuals who would be most drawn to me, like come to me, which is great. So now most of my clients and stuff, they're not hyper professional individuals. They're usually kind of the black sheep. They're a little bit different. They're a little bit edgy in their own unique way. And I have people and I've worked with in the fashion industry all the way to like construction industries as well. And so it doesn't really matter. It's just the person and the core of who they are. And so it's kind of cool because it's as founders and CEOs, I think what's interesting is we're asking our founders and CEOs to be leaders to such a greater degree. The world is wanting more culture within the workplace. Like employees want to enjoy their job more, but part of that is how they connect to the owners, to the founders, to these CEOs. So part of that is them actually embracing who they are, being themselves, finding that balance between, yes, the professionalism, but also the authenticity that is going to be the thing that connects the people, not just to their job, but from you as a person as well. And also the company, because how are you actually demonstrating that within the company? The company has an energy, that company has that vibe. And if you can't actually describe it to someone, nobody knows what they're doing. They just think that they're signed up for a day-to-day job instead of the actual authentic mission, purpose, core values of a company too. It's a living, breathing entity. So it's like, how do you get people to connect with that?
Wow. Yes. I've spoken to a few people, guests that talk about how to energize their companies and talk about redefining the core missions and values and whatnot. But before we go into that, let's talk about shifting from obligation to fulfillment in business. So a lot of our audiences may be entrepreneurs or CEOs as well, but how does someone know that they've actually made the shift? Because my purpose is to actually help leaders become more fulfilled, become better leaders, and just to hear about the mindsets shifts that they need in order to succeed as well. So how do we go from shifting from obligation to fulfillment in business?
Yeah, so this one's huge. You're going to know you're unfulfilled by how you feel when you wake up and you're going to work, right? So if you're dreading it, if it exhausts you, if you're getting burnt out, I know that you're not doing things that are fulfilling to you. I know that you're not inspired by what you're doing, right? If you're like, oh, I have to do this, I should do this, I need to do this. It's all the have to, should, supposed to's. And it's interesting because when you kind of break down, I love to do this with every leadership person possible, like CEOs, founders, everyone. Just break down your day into all the things that you do, right? You break down a day and then you break down the week and we look at all the tasks that you do. And there's going to be things on there that I say, well, which ones do you love so much that you get energy from, right? That actually energizes. Even if you're tired, like these things are the best things. And mark all those down for me. The other ones, let's look at those dynamics and who can you actually delegate to? Because when you have a company, especially a larger company, it's really wisdom to find out who has the best role for the things that you hate. It's not going to be you. You're probably not even performing at your top level when you're engaged in things that are that draining to you. You're going to be doing it kind of half-assed. You're not going to actually get the job done. You're not going to be innovative. You're not going to be creative because you don't really care about it. It's just a to-do list. However, someone in the company is going to be the person who loves it the way you love other things. And this is where the human behavior dynamic is. The more that you can understand yourself, understand the individuals who are working under you, the more that you can look at that and say, this is perfect for so-and-so, this is perfect for so-and-so, get all that junk off your plate and focus on what truly matters, right? And sometimes I've had this before where I was working with a leader and we looked and we got all the junk off the plate and we saw what truly mattered. And it was like, why are you even in this role? Like, why did they put you here? Because she wasn't even in the role that she was the best suited for. And she went to the company and said, hey, listen, like, I hate this job. I hate what you put me in. This was a mistake. And the position was open. She's like, can I now apply for this position in the company? She's like, this inspires me. This lights me up. I want to do this all day, every day. And it was wisdom by the company because they transferred her over there and she became highly more productive, highly more innovative, highly more creative. So sometimes you can look at these lists and realize I have the wrong person in the wrong seat, and that also costs your company a lot where they could just fit in the company in such a better place. So that's where the human behavior dynamic comes in. Because again, once you do that, you go from I have to work to I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be hard, but I really want to get to the other side. Like I love doing this dynamic. I want to do this. I'm choosing to wake up today, get over this or work on this. And that changes how you feel. And so you go from being drained and not having energy to feeling energized and alive and ready to go to work. Everyone can do what they love and love what they do. It's a really cool thing. And it takes the human behavior dynamic to figure it out.
I love that because when you were talking about that inside, I could feel and relate to it as well because I have an e-commerce store and at one point I was doing orders. When you first start, I had to do orders and that's something that I really didn't like doing. And it wasn't growth, it wasn't high impact. And so eventually now I found somebody who's super organized who loves doing that. And same for other tasks as well. It's just what I'm passionate about myself is growing and expanding and getting I love sales. I've got a sales background. So I love connecting with people and growth, and that's the thing. And that lights me up. That gives me energy. I get so much energy from when I make a call, when I make a connection and meet the person. I just love the growth and expansion part of the business. So just finding the right people in place, but making sure they're happy as well, because that's where I'm trying to find the sweet spot now is assigning the proper tasks to the proper people so they're all happy. I want my team to be happy as well, filling in the gaps so that there's no duplications. But that's another story. But I'm curious to know, let's talk about scaling and business growth because you help entrepreneurs grow 3 to 5 times in value. So what do most entrepreneurs get wrong about what really drives that kind of growth? Because everyone wants to grow and succeed, but what do they get wrong about that?
We focus on 4 elements, right? So we'll focus on 4 elements because every entrepreneur usually has a bottleneck in one of the 4 elements and sometimes multiple. So we focus on the people, right? Where sometimes it's literally they have the wrong people in the wrong seats. They're hiring the wrong people. The people aren't a fit for a culture. And you go in and you're like, if I say, would you enthusiastically rehire all your employees? And if they're like, no, then I know that we have a major people problem, right? So sometimes it's a people problem and we dive in to see if that's where the bottleneck is. Sometimes it's a strategy problem. Sometimes they don't really have clarity on the vision, where they're going. They don't have clarity on the core values of the company. They don't have clarity on the actual mission of the company. They have goals, but maybe it's just kind of a quarterly goal, but it's what are the yearly goals? What are your 3-year goals? What are your 10-year goals? I have people I work with who are setting goals beyond their lifetime because they genuinely want the company, to survive past them. And to do that, they're putting things in place now. And people don't think about it, but Warren Buffett, he's been training the individual, I forget his name, by the way, pardon me. Sorry. The person who's taking over his company, he's been training him for quite some time. So succession planning takes a really long time because Warren wants his company to stand the test of time. So stuff like that is stuff you think about now. You don't wait until a year before. You might not find the right person because it's not always your family. Again, Warren is a great example because his family's not interested in business. So he couldn't do succession planning with the family, which means he had to find an outside source, right? So these dynamics is sometimes it's what's the strategy? How far are you looking? If you're looking to sell, are you doing the things to raise the valuation of the company and make sure that it's going to get the great valuation so you can sell and make, the profit that you would love to have. The next part is the execution dynamic. You may not even be executing properly. And that's where a lot of bottlenecks happen as well as the operational dynamic. So maybe you have the right people and you have them in the right seats, but they don't fully understand what they're responsible for. And that's because the strategy component might not be shared. You don't have proper KPIs to measure, right? They don't actually understand their role. They know they show up and do these tasks, but what is the actual role they play in this long-term goal? So there's a lot of operational components that fall. And then the cash flow. Cash flow is huge because it takes cash to scale. So if you don't have the cash to scale, you're going to have to look at outside sources to get cash to scale. And whether that be a bank loan, which is an option, or sometimes people get investors. But remember, when you get an investor, you make the sacrifice of losing part of your company, so it's cash flow is really important. Whenever we work with companies, we really focus on cash flow. Even if you have healthy cash flow, we want better cash flow because it takes a significantly larger amount of cash flow to scale and grow your company than people think. And our preference, unless it benefits you, and it could benefit you to merger with another company, but if it doesn't benefit you, our preference is to make sure that there's a healthy cash flow in there and that you're not draining, because there's all these little leaks we look for that you don't even notice. It's funny because it's all the same things that happen in our personal life, like where people start subscribing to stuff and they forget about subscriptions. There's tiny little leaks that happen like that in a business too. And when you go in, you're like, let's plug this up. Let's plug this up. And we call it the power of one, because if you just shift these levers by like 1% here and there, it actually can make a really substantial difference. So when we think about all these different dynamics, you could have something like a bottleneck in one area, or you could have it in many. And also simultaneously, you might think you have one in people, but then all of a sudden you realize, well, it's because it's like linking up to our strategy. We didn't have our strategy clear, so we're not even hiring the right people, or maybe the strategy's unclear. And that's like having a bottleneck in operations, or operations is struggling. And then all of a sudden it's your cash flow is having a hard time. So they can all link together as well. And that's when it's like you kind of go in and we get to do, it's fun, like a deep dive of like, it's like forensic business. It's like, what's going wrong? And let's find out. And it's really fun.
Bonnet. Yeah, that sounds like
it's really, really fun.
Strategy. The first thing that came to mind, the 10-year goals, I did not think about that, and succession, like planning beyond myself, which is something that, wow, is very thought-provoking, because like I'm only thinking 3 to 5 years, but not planning that far ahead. And KPIs per staff as well, because a lot of startups don't have to think about that, and we delegate roles and things shift around too. But having those KPIs in place, very interesting and important. I've written these down because I'm going to apply these actions as well. But when you mention strategies, do you think that it's best practice to sit down with your team and talk about strategies every quarter? What's the ideal strategy planning? And does it involve the whole team? What happens?
Yeah. So whenever we're doing strategy, what we'll do is we'll sit down with the team for like 2 to 3 days in the beginning, and we'll crank out what the strategy is as detailed as we can get it. Right. And then when we meet up every quarter, we're kind of going over the goals based on that strategy, but we'll add little refinements here or there, because you really want to get the strategy pretty clear. You don't want to be jumping ship and changing strategies all the time. It's really hard. It's very confusing, and it can be really hard on your business, especially if you make big shifts, right? It could completely crash that part of your business, which may be the thing that's supporting you. So unless it's like something that's actually valid, it's not a good idea to do. So that's why we like to figure out what the strategy is in the beginning and then just refine it bit by bit if it changes. But what I found is that most founders, owners, even the individuals that work there, they all have a general idea of what the strategy is, because again, like the company is like this living, breathing entity. It's just that they're not quite sure how to pull it out, how to say it, how to put it together, like a mission statement, a vision, core values and stuff, right? So it's kind of like when we go in, we're just helping them connect all the dots to what already exists and find the data and the evidence of where some sort of strategy, some inspiring goals have already transpired, and then really connect with them as a team to see, you can connect with the marketing department and have like marketing in there, and you have like your CFOs and your COOs and all the different executive team, and they're all going to bring a different flavor based on what's going on in the industry, what's going on present day, and that keeps refining it as well. So we go through all those details too. We see, what's the competition doing? Is that something that you guys are getting into? Is that a threat to you? Is that not a threat to you? Like, we're looking at all these different dynamics to see what's genuinely important. And it's cool because as you ask these questions, like the brain starts to work with these individuals where they start to put it all together in such a way that they get the insights on what it looks like. Usually it's on day 2 because we sleep it off after that. Your brain does all this thinking, all this rewiring, then you sleep it off. And that's why we like to do 2 to 3 days, because then day 2, it all of a sudden starts to flow out of them more efficiently. Yeah. So it's not coming from us. It's coming from the company and basically doing that deep dive to pull it out of that team.
Wow. And you've seen businesses scale but lose their soul in the process. So what are the early warning signs that that's happening?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see it in the leadership teams, the founders, CEOs and stuff. The owners, they just hate being there. Like all of a sudden they just hate being there. Like they had this business and they really liked it and they were really inspired by it at one point, and then they just hate it and they're dreading it. Usually they like want to sell it. I had one individual. She was pulling in almost 500,000 US like a month. And she told me she wanted to sell her business, and she's very young. So I was like, okay, like, let's just check in. I was like, what's going on? Right. And so she's like, I'm exhausted and I'm going to have to do this and I'm going to have to do that. And I don't want to do this. And this is not even something that I'm interested in. And I was like, just hold the phone. Let's just like take a break. Right. So there was a lot of items in there that were necessary to delegate that she had taken on. This is where we were talking about earlier for the burnout. And so when we identified all the things that she had taken on that she technically should not even be doing, she got individuals, the right people in those seats to take over those roles. That created a big relief for her just in that. And then we just did some mindset work on the challenges that she had experienced, because it was so hard for her to imagine continuing on based off the stress she had gone through, like, 'cause just going through the burnout. It was like, she's like, how am I going to do this again? That we just went through, we shifted her mindset. We started to go through and see how the challenges served her. How is it part of like the purpose, the vision, so she could see a different perspective, that it wasn't just challenging, but there was also inspiring things that came from it. And it was really funny because like, as we started work together, we were a couple sessions in, and she's like, she laughed because she said, I'm working harder, but I'm feel better and more energized. And I was like, perfect. And she was working harder technically, but we had restructured her life to do more things that she wanted to do. We took the have tos and the should off her plate. She started doing more of the things that energized her. And ironically, you went from burnout to just like being able to do more because she was doing things that energized her. And so, yeah, it's a huge deal. And that's part of when we get disconnected from it, we lose our own soul within the company and then we let it go. And sometimes this works too, by the way, because sometimes I've seen this as well, and this is something to think about as entrepreneurs, owners, is when you all of a sudden fulfill something in a company, right? Maybe the company fulfilled something in your life, like a purpose to you to such a great degree that now you're inspired to work on something else. That's also okay. And for people like that, part of the fulfilling dynamic is getting you out of the business, but in such a way, because again, some people are like, oh, I have to get out. I just have to sell it, but it's not like good sell because it's not valuated that well. And it's like, why do you have to sell it? You know, it's like Warren Buffett basically buys companies that he loves and puts in CEOs. He's very good at hiring people. And so he'll put in the right CEO for a company and then he watches a company thrive, right? So why can't you do that? You know, and then you get to step out and you're just overseeing some of the stuff while someone else is like the CEO of the company. And then we'll usually work with that individual to make it like a better valuation for the company. So if they want to sell, they can sell, but then they just go off and do the other thing that they want to do, you know? So it's like, if you lose your soul in the company, it doesn't mean you have to stay. There's plenty of CEOs who have stepped out, who are also owners, who have stepped out, found replacements, then gone and done something else that they love. The world doesn't have, I think when we get into business, sometimes we put all these restrictions and limitations on ourselves and we think we're so trapped and stuck, right? But part of actually growing a business and learning how to do it is getting yourself unstuck and realizing you can have more of the freedom you want. It's structuring in that way of what gives you freedom, right? And if it's getting out, it's getting out. If it's staying in, it's staying in. Like, I just want to help people get what they want. Yeah.
Yeah, I love to be like Warren Buffett and be able to just sit back and read all day, because for me, learning is what I'm passionate about. Growing the business and learning. I love reading books and I just learn from others. That excites me. So if I can build a business that I can do that, which the podcast is something that I'm passionate about, where I get to learn from other people, other leaders as well. So that's the goal, to grow the podcast but still grow the business as well and not be tied up in the business. But many CEOs panic when they realize they have to step back from the day-to-day operations. Mm-hmm. Especially giving like their baby away to somebody else. They've built the company and something that they've built. So how do you help them through that transition and find, you know, because I know it's the control thing too, and sometimes they get in their own way, but how do you help them through that transition?
Yeah, well, a lot of it, we get stuck in our own pride, right? So we're like, this is my baby, this is my company, it needs to be that way, or this way, like can't change, like nothing can change. And it's like, sometimes true. Like, I've done tons of studies on companies and stuff, and you see where they bring in the wrong individual, the wrong CEO to take over. That's too far from the company and the company's crash. That is not inaccurate, but that's not what we're talking about here. Like, that's so far from usually what people do. Usually people are interviewing, finding out who's a fit. Do they understand the background? Do they understand like the market? Do they understand like the actual product or service you're providing? And so it's usually our pride that gets in the way, thinking that we can do it better. And guess what? We always can't do it better. Like there's people out there that can do plenty of things that we do better. We have some areas of expertise, but the world expands and grows on such a regular basis. There's new information, knowledge being pumped out. We're having new experiences all the time. Like it's really easy to fall and let things slip through the crack, especially if you're disengaged. And I know you're disengaged if you're looking to delegate, because guess what? You're not wanting to do it anymore, which means you want someone else to do it. So find the person that's engaged. Find the person that's interested. Find the person that was you 10, 15, 20 years ago that is so interested in doing the things you're not interested in doing anymore, that you can look at them and say, I think they're going to do a better job. So that's a really important dynamic, is to sort of just shift from our pride and realize we're not always the best fit for the company, especially depending on where you want the company to go. And then the other dynamic as well is you want to make sure, again, we're doing the right person for this seat so that they don't just have the educational background, they don't just have the career background, but they're also fit with the culture, right? Because if you put someone at the top that is not a fit with the culture, all your employees are going to want to quit. So if they're not a cultural fit, but they're perfect on paper, don't touch them. Don't touch them. It's easier to train someone to be perfect on paper than it is to get someone to fit in with the culture. So that's where, like, I suggest, like, this person fits perfectly with the culture. Can they be trained in these things that didn't match up to this one that's perfect on paper? And it's like, yeah, for sure. It's like, then go for that one, because you cannot train someone in culture. Culture is something that they usually have innately inside of them, that they just align with it. So that's a really important thing to work for. And then again, we want to make sure everything is clear. Like, even if they're the CEO and you're still the owner and founder, how are you keeping tabs on this? So just like, all of the employees at a lower level have KPIs, right? They have KPIs, they have things that they're responsible for. So do the individuals at a higher level. And so if every week you're meeting with them and you're checking in and you're saying, okay, how are we doing on reaching these goals? And if they're not being reached, it's like, okay, well, what's the bottleneck? This is something that this person is meant to know. They're in charge of the company. They're meant to be keeping track of all these things and say, it's XYZ. We're working on this, we're working on this, we're working on that dynamic, so that you, again, can step out. If you're not making sure things are tracked, things are managed, it's really hard to step out. You want the systems in place. This is the operations dynamic, where if all the systems are in place and all these structures are in place, then guess what happens? Like, it's easy for someone else to step in. I was just talking to someone because they do franchises. I love franchises. We were laughing because it's a little bit of a type A personality thing, but I love franchises for the reason that they're so set up, and it's so meticulously set up by this business that someone who's never had a business before can go into a franchise model and be successful. Why is that? All the operations, all the details are just meticulously drawn out for you. And amazingly enough, like, if we do that within our company, where we have the standard operating procedures in these various places, you could have individuals that can step into a greater and greater degree, right? And so it's easier to fire people, which is great, because sometimes people don't want to fire people because it's too hard to retrain, and it can be, but sometimes these people are like a drain and they're not even worth training up. But then it's easier to fire people because guess what? It's easier to train someone to step in because all the standard operating procedures are in place. And that just like helps it work like a well-oiled machine. The thing that we think about businesses is so much can go wrong every day. So much can go wrong. But when we can organize and structure the things that we know could be chaotic, and we put that structure behind it in the organizations and the systems and the processes, guess what happens? There's a low probability that the shit's going to hit the fan there, which makes it easier when the shit really does hit the fan in other places to manage that. Because then you're just managing that instead of managing all the little crap on the day-to-day basis that's super annoying, by the way. A lot of this stuff can be handled, and it helps when things really get crazy. Especially COVID was a great example, because things got crazy for so many businesses and things shifted, and it was fun to see. Like, the clients that I had that had the most systems and structures in place, they thrived. They thrived because they could go and innovate, because it was a time to innovate. And I remember talking to one, and he's like,
What's the secret weapon behind every top CEO and entrepreneur? A game-changing executive assistant. Her Messi gives you access to elite EAs who supercharge your productivity. From payroll and admin to social media and customer support, they handle it all so you can focus on growth and big picture decisions. These aren't your average assistants. They're expertly trained, thoroughly screened, and equipped with the latest AI tools to work smarter and faster. Ready to delegate and dominate? Get 15% off your first 2 months with code INSPIRE15. Don't wait. Visit Hermessi, that's HERMESSI.com, and take back your time today.
I do not want to shut down. And I said, okay, you don't have to shut down. I was like, but what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to grow it. He says, because everyone is shutting down. And he's like, and I've got enough in place that I can move this thing and move it fast. And he did. He did. And so he took out a lot of the local companies, and he's now like a bigger conglomerate in the industry because everyone just stopped and slowed down, and he had enough structure in place that he could push his team pretty fast. And so that's why it's important to just like, I can't stress it enough. It's like, have that in the back end, have a stable back end. And then guess what? You'll be able to grow off that with more instability.
I love that. That's powerful. Mm-hmm. And when a leader is smart, but their team isn't thriving, what human element do you think is missing?
Yeah. So definitely check in with the culture, like, of the team, in the sense, like, do they understand what they're there for? Do they think they're just there for a paycheck? I see that quite often where people just show up and it's just like, it's a paycheck, right? So they don't understand. They haven't had the opportunity to connect with what the product actually does. I remember one time I was working at a uniform company as an employee, and I was so inspired by that company. And it's like, well, why are you so inspired by uniforms? It's not that big of a deal, right? But what I had the opportunity to do is I would go to the fittings with the design team. And it was so fun because I was, like I said, type A. So I had all the organizational skills. So they're like, bring Carly. So I would go do all the organizational stuff. But part of it was getting all the uniforms out for employees. And we would meet thousands of people. And it was so inspiring to see these people, because we made really nice stuff, really high quality, put on uniforms, and they would sit there and be like, this is like the nicest suit I've ever owned, right? Because we were making luxury uniforms, beautiful stuff. And they're like, this is the nicest suit I've ever owned. And it's like, it's yours. Like, the company buys it, and they look at you and they're like, I'm going to keep this. Even after I quit, they let us keep the uniform, and this is beautiful. It doesn't even look like uniform. And we're like, awesome. So when you see that impact you make, you see them light up, you see their confidence change. I connected with that. I noticed, this is something I saw later. I was like, why didn't that company work? Because the other employees were not engaged. They had no idea. They had no idea the impact they were making. They had no idea what was going on the other side because it wasn't shared. So you could have the coolest product on the planet. You could be doing the coolest service. You could be making the biggest impact. But if your employees don't know, even at the ground floor to the janitor level, if they don't know, they're just showing up for a paycheck, and that's not that inspiring. And so that's something to remember, is like, how are you sharing the vision with your team? How are you sharing the wins with your team? There's some people, they'll send out like really cool stories, either via email or they have like WhatsApp chats, and they share it with the company. It's like, this is the cool story. This is the feedback I got. Thanks, guys. Like, couldn't have like made it happen without you. Sometimes there's one where people send in like testimonials, and they put all the testimonials on the wall, and the whole hallway is covered in testimonials with pictures of the person. So you can't walk down that hallway without knowing you changed people's lives, you know? And so it's like, what are you doing to share the message of the company with the people? Because people, again, they don't sign up for a paycheck. If they did, then we would have less people complaining about their jobs. They sign up because they want to be inspired. They want to make a difference in the world. And if you could just share with them how your company is doing that, you could see people light up. Things change.
That's interesting. Yeah. So keep your employees, share the news, like whatever growth you have, share the vision with them, and make sure that they know why they're inspired and their mission as well. But that KPI thing, I mean, when you mentioned every week KPIs, I'm like, yeah. We have a remote team, but we use Slack a lot. And this is something that's falling short. And I used to believe in having that weekly catch up, but sometimes things have gotten so busy, and, you know, everyone's timing is different. So I've said, let's do it every fortnight, but I don't do the weekly KPIs. I think that for me I don't have that time as well, but I think that's important. And I just wanted to ask, minimum, what's the KPI? Like, instead of having it once a week, but how do we add that KPI so that everyone's across what they're doing, but feeling inspired at the same time as well? And do you recommend sharing with your team? Like, I share the team when we have important updates on growth, and I share it as we go because we communicate by Slack. So they are always across the wins and what I'm doing and how I'm growing the business and the updates as well. And so everyone's across it. What advice do you give in terms of KPIs when a leader doesn't have that much time and I don't want to go through I don't want to micromanage my team either. I give them the flexibility and the freedom. But sometimes in a way, like they need to know what they're doing and they need to be inspired as well. So what's your advice on that?
The KPIs are there so they start managing themselves. So they're not there for you to micromanage. I don't want it to be extra work for you. It's not going to be extra work. They need to fill it out. It's not your job. That's their job. That's what they're in charge of. And it's really an accountability dynamic, right? You are not there to track their KPIs. They are there to track their KPIs. And they are meant to keep those updated for you. So usually what we'll do is we have like the leadership team and stuff. Like we have a whole spreadsheet usually that we put together. And we pick the KPIs for each person to be in charge of. And there's usually only like 3 to 4. It's nothing too crazy. But what they do is they'll have those KPIs, they update it. And if they're in the red, we find out, okay, why are you in the red? And it's their responsibility to tell you why they're in the red. And if they don't know, it's like, well, what's the gap? And you say, what's the gap? What do you need help with? Is there something that you need help with? And sometimes in those meetings, this is where it's like the meetings are meant to be tailored in such a structured way that they don't go off track. I hated meetings until I found out you could structure them. I've actually fallen asleep in a meeting before. Literally like when I was sitting up and then I got asked a question and I was like, oh my gosh. And I just spelled it out. I agree with everything so-and-so is saying. I think they made some excellent points. And the CEO just looked at me and was like, thanks, Carly. And I was like, I just looked at my current boss at the time and we left and I said, I have no idea what just happened. I said, I literally fell asleep in the chair. What happened? She goes, I don't know. She goes, I blacked out too, but you did fine. And I was like, oh my gosh. So that's how boring meetings can be because they go so off track and you sit there for an hour and you're like, I cannot do this. I have so much to do. It would make me crazy. So when you can structure a meeting, I loved this when I learned about this in such a way that they're productive and you keep it set to a certain amount of time. In really large companies, they do 15-minute daily meetings, right? So in larger companies, they'll do every day 15-minute little mini meetings just to catch up on how they're working, how the progress is going. And it's super fast, just 15 minutes. And on a weekly basis, it's 30 minutes. You don't go over 30 minutes. That's it. And basically what you're doing is you're very structured in the dynamic of you get in, you check in, you say hi, everyone says hi, and they do like a quick connect, right? Because you just want to connect with people too. And usually we'll share some good news. So like a quick thing about good news that happened to you. And it doesn't have to be professional, it could be personal. And so we start with that. And then we dive into like, how are they meeting on their goals, right? And then very quickly, it's like, okay, do you need any help with that? And is there any roadblocks? And sometimes those are the times where it's like, well, this is the roadblock and I need so-and-so from XYZ. And it's like, okay, cool, take a note. And it's like, well, this is the roadblock and I can't do without this. And it's like, oh, okay, that's this department. Like, take a note, right? And sometimes they'll bring things up and it doesn't have anything to do with the conversation. And we call it parking lot. We put it in the parking lot. And it's like, okay, put that in the parking lot, put it to the side. We'll bring it up another time when we're focused on that. But right now we're not focused on that. Right. And so it really gives the team an opportunity to talk about the challenges very quickly, efficiently, and just say who they're going to reach out to. Nothing is meant to get solved in that conversation. It's an awareness conversation and an accountability conversation to make sure that they're keeping on track with what they're meant to be doing. And if there's a gap, that they're just staying on top of it. And if there's a gap that someone else could be involved in and help out, that we're on top of that as well. And so, yeah, you are not responsible for the KPIs. You have your own KPIs as an owner and you check in on those. But the KPIs that they're responsible for, they are responsible for managing, keeping track of them, bringing them to the table and make sure they achieve them. And if they're not achieving them, they get to figure out why. And so it's like this real cool accountability dynamic. And it just makes people think more and work more. And it's also kind of fun to like know what you're doing and then achieve it. Yeah.
So you guide them to set their own KPIs, but like based on what their roles and description are, or you help them
you pick them. You can help them sometimes, like, because they have a lot of information and knowledge, because we've hired them for that specialty. So you tell them like what the goal is, right? So for example, I love Walmart's KPI because it's hysterical and it's just offbeat. And so it gives you an example, like it's not all about money all the time. So like Walmart's goal is to keep the prices low in their stores, right? So one of their KPIs, if they're not getting enough complaints that there's not enough customer service people on the floor, they know that store is overstaffed. And if a store is overstaffed, it cuts into being able to offer low profit margins to be able to offer low prices for you. So if I'm not complaining, like I've been looking for this forever and I couldn't find a staff member and they get not enough complaints, that's a KPI that they look at and say, this store is overstaffed. And we're not going to be able to keep our margins low because their goal is to keep their margins low for you. And so what's the goal and what are the measurements that would indicate that you're achieving that goal? Walmart's such a fun example. And so if you sit down with your team and you look at like, what are the specific goals that you guys are achieving? And they'll probably have very specific goals within their parameter and be like, okay, what can we measure to see if this is happening, right? And they'll be able to come up with ideas too. And you can suggest some stuff, but because they're doing it day to day, there might be some really cool ideas that they come up with that you can kind of encourage them to assist and participate.
Wow, I like that advice. These are really helpful tips. So I'm taking a lot away from this. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube and you're finding this valuable, please do me a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and tell me what key takeaway moments that you're going to apply to your business. And if you're listening just on the podcast, please do me a favor, hit that follow button as well. Let's talk about burnout and resilience. So when someone feels trapped by the success that they've created, what's the first mindset shift that sets them free?
Yeah. So first, it's like, I want to know why you feel trapped by it, right? Like what made you feel trapped? And again, this could be maybe you're the individual who has not delegated the things that you don't need to be doing anymore. I mean, I know we see it all the time in leadership roles, whereas you take on that next role and you're still doing all the crap that you don't have to be doing anymore. That doesn't inspire you. Sometimes certain things inspire you. There was one CEO that was so inspired by customer service that he actually was the customer service manager. Even though he was the CEO, he simultaneously served as that because he just loved it so much and it fueled him. And so it didn't ever burn him out. So that's some of the things too, where it's like, maybe you do want to be engaged, but maybe you thought you had to get disengaged from something. And that's also not the case, right? So it's really checking in what got you burnt out after becoming successful. And again, there's also the other option where maybe you wanted to achieve something, part of your purpose got fulfilled by achieving it, and you're ready to step out but feel trapped. And that could also be a dynamic where your brain's like, but I really want to do this and I really want to do that. I'm so successful that I'm actually stuck in the company and I can't get out, even though I really, really wanted to do this next, right? So it's really checking in with you. It's like, what burned you out now that you're successful? What are the things? Are those things that you can delegate? Are there other things that you'd love to get involved in? Or are you one of the individuals who this was only a part of your purpose and was ready to move on to the next thing when you were done? And it's time for you to like actually replace yourself in the company. Like you could be that as well.
Wow. So also when they're feeling successful, but they feel fully empty, what advice can you give them?
Yeah, that means that you placed your fulfillment on success. And that's not factual, because the interesting thing is if you think that you're going to be complete and a part of you is going to be done when you become successful, you've missed out on what life is. Like literally your existence. Your existence is to grow on a day-to-day basis. So that form of success that you achieved, if you thought it would give you some sort of key to life or something, usually it's something like that, you're going to feel empty, because the reality is there's the real part of you, your soul's journey, that wanted to achieve that, but after you're done was ready for the next step. Because I love this one. It's like, once you're ripe, you're rotten. And if you're green, you're growing. And so you're sitting here trying to be ripe, which is when you rot because you're done living, you're done growing. What's the point? But the truth is you're still green. And so that's why there's that emptiness that comes with it, because you placed an unrealistic expectation on success. And when you realize success is just a small part of your journey, and it was just a piece of the goal to get you to these other goals, to these other goals, to these other goals. And you could do this till the day you die, you know, like till the day you die, you're an ever evolving, growing human being. Like you just don't want to stop. Whenever you put that stop on it, you put it on it because you think there's this end game, there's this end goal, but the end is death. It's death. You're dead. Like before that, there's still growth. So why are you thinking it's done?
Yeah. I don't know. It's like I've heard stories how people feel they've reached a certain milestone, then they don't feel fulfilled anymore. But I personally, my belief is that once you hit your certain goals, create bigger goals, you know, think bigger. There's always more growth and more opportunities. You've just got to think outside the box. Don't just set the, like, no matter what, set the end goal to always be growing no matter what. So that's the way I see it anyway. But
it might be in a different area of life too, because that is a beautiful point. It's like, we're just not done. But sometimes you change areas of life. Like I had a client who had reached a certain wealth goal. very wealthy, and that was it. But he had focused his whole life, he was in his mid-30s, on wealth building, that he hadn't focused on relationships. So even though he had all this wealth and he loved his career, he had a very fulfilling career, there was still an emptiness inside, an emptiness that wasn't there before. But again, it's like you're saying, fulfilled that one part of a purpose, fulfilled that one goal, had the success, and then wanted to move on to something else. And this time it was in a different area of life. So our main thing was just like working on relationships with him, just so he could like fulfill that part. And now he's fulfilling that part, and it's like, that's awesome. We just don't stop. Success is kind of an illusion.
Speaking of success, everybody has their own definition of success. I mean, I've heard some really great definitions from my guests, and everyone defines it differently. So what is your definition of success personally?
Yeah, when you are successful, you know that you're not successful and that you're not worried about success and that you're just living a life that's so fulfilling. It doesn't matter if you succeed or fail. You just love your life. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a massive failure or a massive success. You don't need to be puffed up. You don't need to be picked up. You just love what you're doing so much that you're just living your life. You got your destiny.
Love that. Is there anything that I've missed? Is there any key messages that you want to leave with our audiences?
Yeah, I think just, we talked a lot about burnout today. So I think that dynamic is, really understanding who you are, what's important to you, really fine tuning like how you're spending your day. Because the reality is when you are feeling alive and inspired, you are capable of so much more than you think. Like that's where your unique genius is. That's where your innovation is. That is where your creativity is. All the inspiring things that come forward that you seek, you already have inside you, but it's going to come forward. You're going to have more resilience and adaptability to change. You'll be able to tackle challenges that are bigger to a greater degree when you are focused on things that fulfill you, things that fuel you. So just that small little task. We talk about it so much today, but I think people don't realize the genuine importance of rebuilding your life, getting away from those shoulds, starting to delegate things, starting to organize things in a different way that you can start to focus on the things that you love. You'll get all the stuff you want, It's already in you basically, but that's how it comes out. Yeah.
I love it. Carly, where can people find you if they want to follow and connect with you?
So they can find me on my website. So they can go to West Coast Growth Advisors and then just pick whatever. They could contact me directly or social media, like do whichever is your favorite.
Oh, hang on a second. I've got one more question. Talking about AI and automation, what are your thoughts on that? And why is the human element becoming even more critical for leaders who want to scale?
Well, the funny thing is AI is only as good as its programmer. So you can't really train AI to be skilled without having skilled humans on the back end. So that's an interesting dynamic. It's really important too to remember we crave the human connection. So when we thought about COVID, what was the biggest challenge people were having with working at home and all this stuff and the isolation? They just kept saying isolation, isolation, isolation. Like we're craving human connection. Like people would say how depressed they're getting and all these different dynamics and how much they struggled mentally as a result of not having human connection. So there's forever going to be a need for human connection. I think what we can look at with AI is there's a lot of these tasks that we don't really like to do. Right? We don't love to do. They're usually the very remedial tasks that AI is taking over. And for those remedial tasks, it's great to have the opportunity to delegate them. And if you have, like, for example, if you have someone who loves customer service and you have most of customer service being taken over by AI, it's like, where can you put them to lead like the small team or even just be able to program it to such a degree because they love it so much and just be like, no, it could do this better. It could do this better. It could do this better. So AI is definitely inevitable in our world. It's not going away anytime soon. It's doing too many amazing things. It's growing and evolving faster than we can actually like imagine. But it's just to remember too, it's still not a human, doesn't have the consciousness. It's not going to have the reflective capabilities. And so it's going to be limited in how it can perform in certain tasks. And when you can really understand what AI is, as opposed to what we're kind of thinking it is, because some people think it's like this nightmare that's going to take over everything. And it can't, it's a thinking model. It's not going to do anything weird or anything crazy like that. It's just, it thinks and it learns. And like ChatGPT, it's like a language model. So it's been great for like copywriting and stuff. But again, it's only as good as its programmer. Yeah,
Yeah.
it still needed the human. I'm working with someone right now in like the marketing and stuff, and he's done amazing stuff that's popped out of his AI, but I've never gotten my AI to do that. So it's as good as the marketer who programmed it. And then he goes and he refines it even before he sends it to me. And so that's something to remember too, is like, I couldn't even get that result, but that's not my expertise. Right. It's not my expertise. But when I have that expert in there diving in, and then he's training his employees, and then they're all refining it, and they still check it and they still get the human touch. Like, I feel like I've gotten a really awesome thing. So it's in our companies, we ask, how can it help us? How can it help even our employees have more productivity? How can we incorporate it in such a way that we're giving an opportunity to thrive and grow beyond their own circumstances, that help them with crap that they don't want to do? And then, yeah, give them the opportunity to get creative with it too. This is another one I was talking to. He's really given his people an opportunity to get creative with it, but also because he's like, it's freed up so much time for them for these remedial tasks. He just kept his employees on, and now they're doing all this other creative stuff for their customers as well, which is amazing. So they're really innovating, just because instead of getting rid of people, they're like, well, you learned it so well. Let's package this stuff up and make it for customers too.
Wow,
So
that's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah, definitely. It's AI is a tool to scale and help scale things up as well, and free up time to be able to do the creative, beautiful things and strategize as well. But no, for me, I think AI is a game changer, and any company
It
that's
is.
not using and leveraging it, like you said, the prompt is what's important. And if you don't have that human element checking it, because it could sound soulless and it can sound exactly the same if you don't have that element to go through it. So that's very
Yeah.
powerful and important. Awesome, Carly. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I found so many useful tips there, and I hope everyone can apply it themselves as well. So thank you so much, Carly. I really appreciate your time.